higher, further, faster, together. We should change the name of our podcast to that because that's pretty cool. But
that
right,
is super cool.
It's cool. For now, we're just going to go with Infinity Rewatch, I guess. I'm Andrew Fantasia. I do not have the word Marvel in my name yet. But you do, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Absolutely. What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan J. Marvel, and tonight we just got back, literally fresh from the movie theaters. We just saw the Marvels. And I gotta say, this is going. I think this movie will forever be debated. I don't think I think the audiences are going to be pretty divided from our own group. We had a control group ourselves for this very experiment, and I can tell you that I felt like there was a big divide amongst the group.
Interesting. I mean, amongst the group, yeah, I can see that, but I don't see this becoming divisive in a Last Jedi or Eternals kind of way. I don't see it playing out that way. I feel like this is a solid, good, fun movie. Not to jump ahead to our feelings already, but I think it's a solid, good, very fun movie. And there are haters out there. Just go on Twitter if you don't believe me. And they are going to hate everything about it because they want to. But other than that, there's nothing in here to really split people down the middle.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. This is one of those movies that live in the world, and we've talked about this a few times. Various Marvel movies in the history of our podcast, and this one lives in the world that either you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. And it's not like, and again, it's like you said, it's not divisive in the sense of Eternals, where you're left like people that will like just justify it to be good for the sake of good. No, this movie is like thoroughly entertaining, but if you want to nitpick it, you're going to find things you're not going to like. It's just, but if you sit back and are entertained by it, then you're going to see yourself a good movie out of this. That's essentially what this is.
Yeah. I didn't know really what to expect for the most part. But I walked away from this real happy with what I saw, and just I had such a good time with it. And I think that they put out the first Marvel film in a while that is just going to safely coast. I think that's the best phrase for it. It's going to safely coast. A lot of people like to hate on Quantumania. Everybody seems to love Guardians 3, but this one I think is just going to coast. It's going to quietly do its thing. And because that's the kind of movie it is too, really. It's just doing its own little thing in the pocket of the Marvel universe. What Darben got up to didn't really affect too much of anything else. It's just a solid, self-contained adventure. And I think that's how it's going to present amongst the Marvel fandom community in a weird way. I don't know. I just feel like people are going to be like, yeah, that was a cool one. Or, yeah, I didn't really love that one. And that's it. It's not going to be a conversation starter.
No, this one, you know what, though? First of all, before we get deep into it, I do have to let our audience know that there will be spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
Some major spoilers will be had. Overall, though, I could even argue the movie itself is not a spoiler. The movie itself is not. The story, we could talk about the story, and you'd be like, yeah, those are not really spoilers, per se. But the ending, that's a big spoiler.
You're right, man. Nothing in the plot, nothing in the whole plot of Darben is doing bad stuff and we have to stop her.
Yeah.
Has any big turns where you'd be like, ooh, we can't let the audience know about that. Everything spoilery happens after the fact, but not in a shoehorned way, really. I keep doing this, but I have to give credit. I think the Multiverse saga has had the best post-credit stuff so far. I have just loved everything, like the Shang-Chi post-credit scenes, the Eternals post-credit scenes, everything. Like, they're all so good and they promise so much fun stuff. And this was no exception. But all the stuff that has to do with the meat and potatoes of the story is very basic fun stuff that is not going to be a thing where you got to see it before the internet spoils it for you. Except maybe one small but fun thing involving round objects.
Really though. Really, there's no spoilers here. But I did want to say it, put it out there. But to be honest, I actually tried to I've been trying to verbalize to Isabella on my way home what I think this feels like. And to me, when you look at the MCU movies now, and you start to look at the ones you love versus the ones you don't, this one to me feels like a comic book issue that you picked up in store, and it's just a one-off story that doesn't really have any big villains, but it's fun, and there's some solid fun superhero moments. But in the end, it's a self-contained issue. But the interesting part is it does do what the Marvel formula does in terms of comic book issues, is when they refer to something, they'll go back and kind of remind you what you need to know about that something before they interject it into the story, which was really nice for me. I really love that. And then on top of that, it felt like a comic book issue. It kind of felt like I don't want to say a filler because it doesn't offer enough, but like it does. It's a filler in the sense it fills in a lot of fills in a lot of gaps that you wanted from older stuff filled in this movie. It literally is a sequel. It fits between the beginning and the end, right? And it serves to continue on, as you say, it coasts along. But that's what it felt to me. It literally felt like picking up an issue and getting some small plot points here and there, but overall it's an isolated issue. It's not offering any main villains or anything like that, no big characters here, but it has a fun story with the heroes that you want to just jump to the next page, see these big splashes of action sequences, and then in the end you have that issue. But this is not like your graphic novel where it's this huge overarching story that's gonna give you some big satisfaction at the end, because I don't think it's gonna give you that. If the only thing you're gonna walk away from was you had a good time picking up that issue and reading it, that's what you're gonna walk away with.
That's a good way to put it. I like that. It's a good comic booky way to put it. So you talked about how we don't have a big name villain in here. So let's talk about Dar-Benn. Okay, she kicks off our movies. Let's talk about her. First of all, the Hiddleston Ashton household is having quite a week, right? Imagine living in that house right now. They're just like, darling, we're both on the screen. Oh, I imagine that's how British people talk 24/7. So Zawe Ashton plays this lady Dar-Benn. Tell me, Ryan, about her, because just like with Jan Rog, I have no idea who I'm dealing with, and I have a follow-up question that's probably a dumb question. I don't say this sounds like I'm complaining, like I'm nitpicking. I'm not. I'm genuinely like, I want to know more about her. Why is she not blue?
So not all Kree are blue.
I'm sorry, that was probably racist.
I mean, technically, it depends. Like, I mean, the comic book community would be like, no, Ryan, they're all blue. But I think in Captain Marvel, the first one, not all Kree are blue, and I think it's because they're more like an infiltrator type of Kree. Like they're meant to go to different planets and kind of blend.
That's
much
true,
like they're
Jude Law was a Kree, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I'm just the dumb. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so I mean, in the MCU world, is not all Kree are blue skinned, but I think it's because they have the ability to adapt, much like the Skrull do, but they only just change their skin color. They don't physically change shape or form like the Skrull.
Mhm.
Because Captain Marvel, as you saw in the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, he had a special device that like made him blend with humanity, so he looked human. But yeah, then once it's damaged, he turned back into the blue skin thing. So I feel like it's kind of a similar thing, but I think they just kind of, because you notice too that even though they have like kind of like a skin tone, they have more of a human skin tone. Their eyes are a different color.
Yes. Yeah, she had very vivid eyes. So, all right, that makes sense. So tell me about this lady. What's Darben's deal?
So she so it appears that I don't want to give away, like I don't want to jump to a certain plot point to explain how she is what she is, or what her course is. But she seems to become the oh, what are they called? Oh my god, it's gonna bother me now. The accuser, the role of the accuser.
Right.
And the accusers are these like old school zealots of the Kree Empire who essentially are these like an extension of the Kree Empire. They enforce the will of the Kree Empire. And in the Guardians of the Galaxy, we get Ronan the Accuser, and that role, essentially, what the role of an accuser is they go to a planet and they judge it, and they judge it whether that they, if whether they are subservient, and if they are deemed subservient, then the Kree will bring them into their culture as slaves, or if they're too aggressive, or more of an opposition, or a what's the word, an adversary, then they are wiped out. And they send in, and essentially in the MCU, it seems like the accusers have quite the power with their weapon. Their universal weapon gives them a lot of power. It seems I don't think they explained it though. But it seems like when Ronan got the Power Stone, that the hammers that they now carry are imbued with a little bit of that power, because it's purple. It's a purple energy that
Ah.
comes out. And it makes sense because of the amount of power she has, but I feel like they didn't talk about it. So I don't know. It's kind of like there's a bit of room for interpretation with this movie a little bit. Like they kind of want you to meet them halfway, which is fine because I like to sit in the front of the theater. So I like to sit in the first four rows, not the first row, but definitely like 3 and 4, somewhere in there. There's a good sweet spot.
That's comfy.
But they want to. They want you to kind of meet them halfway, but an accuser, essentially, that's what they do. And if they find a planet troublesome, and they're not going with the Kree Empire here, then they send in a sentry, and a sentry is a giant robot that essentially can blow up that entire planet. So essentially like it's a robotic nuke, and it does a lot of damage, and so that's how they work. So that's what she is. She's been promoted to the rank of accuser, and she on an adjudicator. So she is the one who moves and enforces forces the supreme intelligence's will.
Okay. Yeah, she had a fancy title. You're right. I forget what it was, but they kept calling her.
It's an accuser. She's an accuser.
Yeah, but there was a word they used in the movie a couple times. Like they called her something like Ultima, something like that, and like somebody called her, "Hey, Darben," and she was like, "Actually, it's blah blah blah, Darben." Like,
oh yes, no, that's the zealot thing I was talking about. Like something like a heretic zealot or something, zealot like that. But yes, it's I can't remember the name, but they have mentioned it before in Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's a reference in a scene where Ronan's about to kill a Xandarian, and he says that he says that he is that name that you're just talking about, and Zealot is another name he's given.
Okay.
And that's the name there. I can't remember, but viewers, I know you know the story just as well as I do. So if you go back to that scene, that's what she's referred to by the Skrulls refer to her as that.
Okay. All right. So that's a cool little backstory for this lady. I like it. And it's, you say they get us to kind of meet them halfway, and I think that's good. We don't really need a whole lot about her, and what we need, we get. We get why she's angry and why she's doing what she's doing.
Yeah, actually, this is where this movie kind of starts to kick off a little bit. Like for me, what I liked about this movie is they didn't waste a lot of time, but they did give you everything you need to know about where Miss Marvel has been, and more importantly, gave you enough backstory about why she's a bit weird as a character.
Yes.
And I think it was really clever. I feel like they should have given it to you a little sooner, just because I feel like maybe I think there's a scene that was perfect, and it would have been better served if it was like I wouldn't even say end credit, but like, kind of like a immediate aftermath of Endgame for her, and that would have made you go, okay, cool, I can't wait to see your movie now because I want to know what you've been up to. Whereas opposed to why is she acting so distant, and where have you been, right? Like, there's a way to do it, and this movie does really clean up a lot of her character. Not like, not that she needed a big overhaul, but there's definitely a lot of room for her to like just like give us some explanation of like, why is she so distant. In acting classes, especially in improv, one of the key themes here is like, you never say no. You can't say no and just distance yourself off as a character. In improv, you have to interact with everybody. So you can't just be like, when someone says, oh, we want you to do this, you can't be like, no, I can't do it. There's a yes and with that being said, is that you can still do your own thing, but you have to do it still within the structure that the characters have built, right? You can't just leave the room. You have to find a way to do something else within that room. So with Captain Marvel, they did it. I think this movie does an exceptional job of taking pieces of Captain Marvel's story of where she's been, but they don't waste time trying to over explain it. They literally give you like, look, she's been here, she did this, she's been there, she did that. And now we're like, let's go on to the next part of this movie. Like, this movie was very fast. This movie does not let off the gas pedal a lot. And when it doesn't let off the gas pedal for very long.
No, it's a quick one. You really feel the brisk pace and the short runtime.
Yeah.
I love that new look at Captain Marvel that we've got, that new adding to the layers of her. Yeah. I think it's fair because of how distant she's always been. I thought it was a really fun and really funny choice that throughout the movie, they kept referring to all these adventures. It's like, oh yeah, I've been to this planet before. It's going to be kind of awkward. I love that. That's like Star Wars level world building for me. That's like Lando Calrissian saying, they must have heard about my maneuver at the Battle of Tanab. And you're like, I'm never going to get to see that battle, but that sounds awesome. That gives Lando so many more layers. And I wish the movie had done that more. I would have loved if they'd made that a running joke where it's like, oh, what about this planet here? It's like, I can't go there anymore. I was, public indecency charge, whatever, just have fun with it. Yeah. I do think though, and this is not, I don't say this as a knock against the movie. I just say this as something that I think I would have liked more, which is, have a prologue at the beginning of the movie, let's say 5 minutes tops, right? A 5 minutes tops prologue, which is her killing Supreme Intelligence. And it starts the movie off on this trajectory of this is Carol doing whatever, at whatever point she did it. And then the rest of the movie is her dealing with the consequences of that and trying to become a newer, better Captain Marvel, because she's like, I don't want to be that person I was at the beginning of this movie because look what happened. I'm not saying that would be better than the movie we got. It would just be something I would have loved to see.
You know what? That's a good point, because I was saying that to Isabel on the way back, is that there's a lot of good pieces to this movie, but I do feel like they're in the wrong places. Like there's I feel like there's a better way to tell this arc. It's the same story. I would not have changed the story in any way. I mean, to be fair, I might have used a different villain or something, but like my point is though, there's nothing wrong with the actor who played the villain. I think just the villain was just way too generic as a villain character. But my point is like the story's still great. The story's still fantastic. Yeah. I would have just rearranged the pieces a little bit so that you feel like you're more strapped into this roller coaster ride as opposed to just being, bumped around a little bit.
Exactly. I love a good prologue in a book or film. I love a good pre-credits like setup. And I think a great example that I'll pull out here is GoldenEye, right? GoldenEye, before the credits roll, you see why Alec Trevelyan becomes the villain. You see why 006 is going to be like, well, screw you, James Bond and MI6. I'm going to go do my own thing and become a bad guy. And part of it is callousness on Bond's part because he's supposed to set the timer to 6 minutes, but he doesn't, right? And now that's not the best example in the world because Bond doesn't exactly learn from that lesson at the end of the day. He just kills Trevelyan and has sex with a lady and then moves on to Tomorrow Never Dies. But if you take that and you apply like a bit more character work to it, that could have been a fun journey to see Carol go on, where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm Captain Marvel. I'm doing all this crazy stuff. I'm going to go make good on my promise and kill the Supreme Intelligence. And us as fans were like, oh yeah, that's what she promised in movie 1. This is so cool. This is only the beginning. What a great start we're off to. And then we see like, oh, she's so powerful. With great power comes great responsibility. And she's not tuned into that yet because look what she did. And that would have been a cool way to just have that happen. It's like, boom, Supreme Intelligence is dead. And then that world falls apart. Boom, opening credits, Captain the Marvels, whatever. And then go right into Kamala. And it's like, oh, okay. Or not Kamala, but go right into Darben, who's just like, I'm angry now. Years later, I'm still angry. I think that would have been a neat little way to go about putting that puzzle piece together.
Which is interesting. You say that, and I totally agree. I agree with you. Also, your example is good, but I think there's a better example out there that we're just not thinking of.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's better prologues that really set up, the tone of the movie in terms of, the actions and consequences. And you're right too, because like the last time we saw her, she's like, tell the Supreme Intelligence I'm coming for him, right? Fun fact, yes, the scene you're referring to doesn't happen until close to the second act of the movie. And we're talking like you're already well into the first act. So, and it's interesting too. So what happens is the movie kind of kicks off with a very lightning fast pace of, just everyone doing their thing kind of thing. And, but like it kicks off with, like you said, it kicks off with the accuser. She finds the bangle on this planet. It's one half. And again, if you already know Miss Marvel and Disney Plus, Miss Marvel has the second half right out of the gate, which is really cool. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see that your Disney Plus kind of investment pays off a little bit. But it's a long time coming in this investment because you're kind of like, oh, okay, finally, okay, someone else has a bracelet. What does this mean, right? And then the movie gets into that. The movie gets into that fairly quickly. And then pretty much what you've seen from the trailer is the beginning of the movie, which kicks off with this power switching right out of the gate. And then this massive fight scene between Space and then Kamala's house, which is fun. The fight scene is hella fun. And then it kicks off with the reference of Captain Marvel being what do they call her?
Annihilator.
That was your time to call her a nihilist, and then that she's going to turn into what's her name?
Well, she looks nothing like Christine Everhart, Ryan, so I'm not going to call her a nihilist.
But he's right. He's right. They call her the Annihilator, and that's where I think Fantasia's point comes into play, which is kind of like, yeah, they're calling her the Annihilator. That's interesting. Like, okay, why? And then they get into the why later. So, I mean, I agree with you. If they set that scene up earlier, it's really good. But I do want to make a call out, and this is where my first spoiler is going to come into play. So I'm going to give you a moment to warn you. Take a moment. And that is that we actually get to see a comic book-esque Supreme Intelligence, which was dope. That was the first big exciting moment for me. I was like, if I had to say though, what makes the villain memorable is this is the best version of the Kree we got. Like their new uniforms look great. They have a really good comic book edge to them, which is really cool. But yeah, that's Supreme Intelligence though. Even though we only got it for like 30 seconds, it was worth every second.
Yeah, look just like it. And I, for one, don't hate me for this, but I'm really glad that the whole plot of Captain Marvel 2 was not about that, because I always found that whole thing of the Kree planet and the Supreme Intelligence to be a really boring part of the Marvel universe. It's just nothing there catches me. So I'm glad that, because we spent so much time there in part one, that we didn't have to make part two all about that. Part two really embraced the more colorful, wild aspects of Marvel that I like much, much better.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, yeah. They did, but the Kree Empire in the comics, like they're a dry, barren planet. Like everything's used up for military resources, and that's why they're one of the biggest military forces in the galaxy. Next to, of course, like the Shi'ar Empire as well. So, not that I'm making any references to, although there is a scene where the ship cloaks. And I'm like, has there been any other cloaking technology in this MCU? And then I thought to myself, there was a moment where I thought to myself, I'm like, I don't remember anything that has real cloaking technology. And then I was like, well, technically the Shield has cloaking technology. So I kind of like had that small little debate, but yes, no, it's like Shield had cloaking technology. So whatever.
Well, if you look way in the background of the Saber base,
yeah,
when they're doing that, you can see a little tiny Geordie LaForge, and he's like, "Captain, I'm going to put the cloaking shields up."
Absolutely. Now that's the other cool part, is we kind of get right into Saber, not sword. I thought it was there's a sword.
There was a sword. Yeah, that was the douchebag from WandaVision. That was sword.
Yeah, there's a sword facility, but this is Saber's facility. So yeah, that was really cool too. So this is where it gets interesting. So after the scramble, the fight scene, you get a little bit of plot development here in terms of the MCU building out. So we get the establishment of Saber by Monica meeting the family, and again, they explain. You get to see, I'd say, majority of the first 30 minutes are all in the trailer. Like the quick beats that you see in there, those are kind of more sprawled out.
Yeah.
There's some really funny moments though in this movie. I'd have to say, out of a lot of Marvel movies, this is probably one of the funniest ones that is done really well. And that's kind of the other thing though. There's a refreshing return to pacing with this Marvel MCU movie. Like it kind of reminded me of Captain America, the first one. There's a well balance of humor. There's kind of this light-hearted experience to it, but still having a very emotional story. So once we get that, I have to say, once we get Miss Marvel into the story, she cleans house. I think she almost steals every single scene she has. Like the comedy chops in that woman is so good. And she has great moments. Like, I don't know if it's just a combination of good writing and like the way she delivers it, but every scene she has, she owns it really well.
Well, I mean, Canadian people are naturally good looking and funny and charming and talented, so that's just how it is.
Absolutely. No, she's got it all, man. And I'm proud of her, because not only that, like Kevin Feige has gone out and said that she's like a proper comic book fan. And what's really nice about her character, and I remember seeing another reviewer say the same, is that, you know, she is a comic book fan, and it kind of bleeds out in her performance. Like it really comes out in that way, but it works for the character. So it's really fun. Like it like you see some of the early comedy moments with her being like, did she get into the Avengers and stuff like that? But I really enjoyed that when they get to her story in the beginning, there's that drawing reference that they did from the Disney Plus show where she kind of has her own, like she's off her own little dreamland.
Yeah, bringing that back was a great touch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It helped make it feel like a team movie, because it didn't feel like she got dropped in Captain Marvel's world. It really felt like all three of those worlds meshed together.
So beautifully said. Absolutely. And even still, like with Spectrum and WandaVision, like you got her just meshed in there as well. Not to a point where one's competing over the other. They actually really clashed well together, playing up that whole body switching thing, which was really fun. I mean, her family too, they had a lot of funny scenes. But what's really cool about that scene, and it's a small thing with humor, but it plays out to be something big later on, is her picking up the tablet, and she's seeing that they have like notes on her family and stuff like that. And Saber's job, they look for anomalies in the planet Earth, which is really cool. So that was really a nice nod. But there's a lot of fun moments there.
Yeah, it feels like we didn't miss a beat from the family from the show, right? Like they went right into it. The set was exactly the same,
Yeah.
which it's a weird thing to think about, but usually when just production wise, when you have a television show set, whatever, and it's done, you strike the set. And that show was made a long time ago. So maybe Marvel just works differently and they recycle these things. If so, awesome. But I wasn't expecting to see the house that much. And then we did. And I was like, oh, cool. It's the same dark green living room. And like everything is right where it should be. I thought that was really cool. It really felt like we didn't miss a beat from, what was that, a year and a half ago when that show was out already.
Absolutely. But no, they did a good job. Like I think, just to kind of summarize what we're both kind of getting around here, is they did a good job clashing these different worlds together. Like, Captain Marvel's world, Monica Rambeau's world, and Miss Marvel's world. Three different characters from technically three different story arcs smashing together to propel one story. They do a really good job of really bringing these characters together without, I guess in this particular case, without really rushing it, because Miss Marvel's story does actually justify what's going on in Captain Marvel. So it doesn't feel out of left field or anything. You just kind of really accept it right away as someone who's invested that time in the Marvel shows, literally. And even there's a scene where just past that, where Miss Marvel talks about that she has the other bracelet, and that she got it from her grandmother, and she literally summarizes her story from the Disney Plus show. She's like, I even transcended space and time at one point. Like, it's like, okay, wow, okay, we got that, check off. Like, now we're up to date on Miss Marvel, moving on. Like, all right, oh yeah, Spectre came back from the blip, and she was part of SWORD, and now she's working with Nick Fury, and boom, okay, we're checked there, and like, you know what I mean? Like, It really was checking off one beat after another to move the story forward into spending the rest of the movie really just battling this Kree soldier. Like, that really is, like, the first act is like they get smashed together, they have a fight scene, they all realize they have to work together because Miss Marvel is tied to the whole thing, and they keep all switching powers. So, okay, we need to work together. Now we need to go fight the villain. And that literally is the beginning of the movie. And from there, that's the movie.
Yeah, they take it and they run.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw in the credits there were three writers of the movie. I don't know which one of them came up with the concept of them swapping powers, but whoever it was, give her a raise, because man, was that ever creative. And it really formed the spine of the first half of this film, because they're switching powers almost all throughout.
Well, they're not switching powers. Their powers switch places.
Switching places. Sorry, when they use their powers, to the point where, jumping ahead a little bit here, when that is no longer an issue, it becomes this little quiet, sad moment of like, oh, yeah, we can't do that anymore. I guess that's a good thing. But now you can see that because Carol has that line of like, oh, I guess that's good. But you can tell maybe she was kind of enjoying this, because she has said in the movie she's lonely. It's just her and Goose on this ship. They're out there doing God knows what, just bopping around space. So the fact that she now has this small family unit with these other two people with her, and they had this connection where, by the very nature of the problem, it was in their best interest to stay in the same place, because Kamala almost died. So now that swapping problem isn't around, you can see her kind of go like, oh, does that mean they're going to leave me? And that was such a cool little subtle moment. And it's like, yeah, there's those extra layers of Carol that we wanted to see.
Absolutely, and it's interesting too with the power, or sorry, the swapping places, because what made me think about it a little bit here, I had my own theory going into it, but again, this is one of my Marvel ambitious theories. So listeners, this is where, like, don't take me too seriously here, but
Mephisto confirmed.
actually, I would have said Galactus confirmed, because Power Cosmic, if you remember the second Fantastic Four movie, which I know a lot of people try to block in their memories, but when they come in contact with the cosmic power, they switched powers. So I thought that was a
That's
play
right.
on that, and leading to the teasing of um, Galactus, essentially. But what's interesting too, which leads me to the second act of this, is the little part of the story of the Skrulls. Now, I liked it, but again, the movie does not let up on speed. So what happens here is and this is where your Marvel knowledge really has to meet halfway. If you had not seen Guardians of the Galaxy, then you know that the Korean Skrull, or even Captain Marvel, you know that the Korean Skrull are in a tiff already, and that they've had peace talks. And in Guardians, they had peace talks that ended up working. Like, and some people may not like it, i.e., Ronan, but that the Kree and the Skrulls have made a peace talk through the Xandarians and all this stuff. And then fast forward to Captain Marvel, then you realize that the Skrulls are invading everywhere, and the Kree are trying to kind of just manage them and push them out of planets. But the Skrull are like, oh, but the Kree are bullies and all this stuff. So you do have to meet Marvel halfway with those certain points. Like, I think the director does a good job of being like, yo, if you're a fan the way you say you are, look, I'm going to give the audience exactly what they need. Not maybe it may not be enough, but I think it is. And you, as the Marvel fan, you know what you need to know from past stuff, and they
Mhm.
talk about that. So then this Kree accuser comes in, and she comes to this Skrull refugee camp, or sorry, Skrull refugee colony on a different planet, and she's like, "Yo, okay, I'm here to make a peace treaty, or I'm here to talk about our treaty." And Captain Marvel comes into play, and again, the more I think about it, though, the more it is like a whole story. But I think you're right; it's just the pieces are in weird places. But yeah, anyways, so that's causes a tiff again with the Kree and the Skrull, which was kind of neat. It is nice to finally see a bit more of a conflict there.
Yeah, because we haven't really seen. I don't think we've seen Kree and Skrulls together much. Not even in the first movie.
Well, in Captain Marvel, you see them briefly, but that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's hella brief, like very short.
So for fans of the Kree Skrull War, you got a little bit more on your plate here. First of all, I don't know how you can say people have forgotten about Rise of the Silver Surfer, because you and I are both literally watching it on the second screen right now. In fact, we do that every time we record, right? We watch the Rise of the Silver Surfer on the
we
second
have a
screen.
tradition, a ritual where we'll watch the whole movie before we do this, just to really psych us up for Marvel stuff.
Yeah, flame on. But the interesting thing to note here, and I don't say this as a complaint, I just think it's kind of funny and kind of interesting. Not a whisper of Secret Invasion to be seen.
No, honestly, I really thought there'd be a little bit more development on that area, because that was probably the one Disney Plus project that would have
Benefited.
still fitted in this narrative, but
Yeah, I mean, even just, I thought at minimum, because we didn't really need much about it. It was its own thing anyway. But I thought at minimum, there would have been a moment where Nick and Carol were talking, and somebody was like, Talos, man, he was a good guy, right? Um,
yeah,
but
we have a new Skrull Empire king person guy.
king guy with a French accent, I think, I thought, which is kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I am a Skrull. Would you like some baguette?
but it still plays up to, like I said, it still plays up to the lore of the MCU between the Kree and the Skrull. And what I really like about this part of the story is, once Captain Marvel kind of kicks off and kind of appears there in front of the Kree, the Kree is like, "Yo, you guys sided with Captain Marvel. This treaty's done." And then she pulls, and then again, she pulls a move like Galactus. She essentially opens a portal that steals the planet's resources, which I thought was so interesting. But
Yes.
it was interesting, but at the same time, I was like, okay, all right, let's see where this goes. Like I was genuinely like both curiously interested. That's what I think I would say. Cautiously interested. There we go. I was cautiously interested to see where it goes because it is an interesting concept. Like then that's when you find out that the villain's true motives here, which is the accuser, doesn't even really accuse anymore. Well, actually, yeah, it does accuse, but in the sense of like, yo, your guys are criminals, so we're gonna take your resources. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what she does. She opens a portal with the new bangle that she has, or the bracelet that she has, and steals air from the planet, which is crazy.
It takes a while to figure out what she's up to, but man, once they made it clear, I thought that was such a cool motivation for our villain. I'm
Yeah.
sitting there, I'm like, yes, oh my God, I have never seen this before. We've seen 1,000 movies where the villain does something and it opens up a hole in the sky, but we've never seen one where they're doing that because they're stealing essential planetary resources to heal their own dying planet. So every time she did it, it was like, I'm going to steal air. Now I'm going to steal water. Now I'm going to come after your son. I was along for that ride. I'm like, this is some of my favorite villain motivation that Marvel's given us.
Yep. It's an environmental villain. But that's the other thing. This movie kind of kicks off, and you don't really get to realize till later on is that the planet Hala is dying. Their sun is dead, and they have no resources. They don't. Their planet doesn't have any oxygen, don't have any water, and they don't have their sun. So that was another thing.
And it's
Uh,
all Carol's fault.
It's all Carol's fault. Thus, given the name the Annihilator, which was really, and that was a really like, okay, that is really cool. And again, it's one thing that I think also really helped build Captain Marvel's character, because you see her come in the latter end of the Infinity Saga, and she's just pure power, and she just throws it around as and being the tough boss that she is, and I respect that. But what I think I said I needed for that character is I need that character to have that great power comes great responsibility moment, like you so delicately put. But on top of that, she needs to learn how to be a leader, right? Needs to take a
Yeah.
step back and start seeing things from a different angle. And that's exactly what this movie does. This movie really kind of helps her in that regard.
Do you remember the show The Big Comfy Couch?
Yes.
Do you think this movie should have had a scene where Carol goes to Hala and she sees the state of the planet and she's like, hey, who made this big mess? I did, didn't I?
But yeah, so at this point after the battle, yeah, you get a better idea of what Captain Marvel has done and where the Kree are at. So you now understand the villain's motivation. And at this point too, they do use some things, some story tools, I'll say, from Captain Marvel, the first one, which they use the Kree memory thing where it helps her unlock her memories.
Yeah,
And
that
so
was a
now
cool callback.
yeah, it was a great callback, and it was a great way to link Captain Rambo and Captain Marvel. Link
Yes.
their stories together again, and really get a better understanding. I think actually, to be fair, I think we really understood Monica's position, even from WandaVision. Like it was pretty straightforward here that she felt abandoned. Period.
Yes.
But they do a good job of explaining it from a different angle, which was like, yo, like you said you'd be there. I blipped. I came back and my mom was dead and the room was empty. And literally that was like the dagger in the heart, which is like the room was empty. And my mom
Yeah.
said it like, and you said that. And she's like, oh yeah, well, I didn't know. Like, and this is really cool because you put Captain Marvel in a corner of like, you can't keep giving us like you were off doing something. And then there's a huge payoff after a very hilarious scene that I will describe shortly. But there's a huge payoff after our second battle in which leads us into the second to third act, which is she ends up explaining that after she destroyed the Supremor, or the Supreme Intelligence, that she destroyed Hala and she didn't know how to fix it, and she couldn't come back until she did. And that's perfect. Like, that literally puts that character in a corner where it's like, okay, we're tired of your excuses. You have to tell us what's going on.
Yes.
And it made her a character that has depth, in the sense of she needs something like there's something there that needs to be fixed, and that's really good. That I really appreciated that.
It tells us so much more about Carol without explicitly spelling it out, but it's right there. Like, most, if not all, the people she cares about live on planet Earth. So she just did a thing where she wiped out a planet, like made it unlivable. The last place she's going to go is the place where all the people she loves are, if she thinks like, oh my God, I could do that again in a heartbeat because I'm so powerful, right? I'm staying away. I'm not going. Sorry, Rocket Raccoon. I'm not answering your call to come help do stuff in Endgame because I killed some folks and now I got to deal with it.
She's afraid of what she can do.
Yeah,
and that plays very beautifully into another scene, which we'll talk about. But now let's talk about some humor a little bit here, because so they figure out what the Kree's up to after this whole memory thing, and they go to this water planet, and Captain Marvel seems very hesitant about going to this planet. And at first you're like, oh, here we go again. She's really distant about, going to some place. And we go to this planet where all they do is sing and dance to communicate to each other.
I think, Ryan, our listeners demand that when we talk about the scene, we sing it.
God, no, I'm not even. It's way too late for me to even get into that mood, but it's really funny. But this is why I think this movie kind of reminds me of Captain America, the first one, in a way, because I'll never forget this. Because Captain America came in at a precarious time, because it was the last movie, it was the first movie that was kind of co-produced by Paramount and Disney, because Disney kind of took over. And people were like, oh, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, which in the end, it turned out to be one of the best comic book films of the MCU. But there's a musicality to it, which is classic Disney, right? There's a song and a dance. Oh. So Captain Marvel clearly plays up to that humor, and they go to a planet where all they do is sing and dance. And the thing is that's how they communicate. They don't speak in normal language. They have to sing to each other, and she's like, that's the only way to converse. And I gotta say, man, just Monica and Miss Marvel do a great job of just trying to accept what they're seeing. And like, even Monica's trying to sing to them, like, where are we going? Oh my God.
I myself would have loved to spend another 10 minutes of movie time on this planet. I get why the movie didn't linger here. But us, like, all singing aside, this planet is the type of place I want to see when we deal with Marvel stories set in the cosmos. Like all the kind of places you see in Guardians of the Galaxy that are just big and vivid and colorful, and they look like nothing else on planet Earth, and the costumes look like nothing else on planet Earth. That's what this was for me. And I was like, yes, every second we spent on this planet, I think it was called Alatna or something. Every second we spent there, I'm like, yes, I love it. Look at that. Look at those costumes. Look how beautiful this is. Look how not earthy this is. That's why the world of Captain Marvel from the first film, I didn't love it so much, because I'm like, oh, cool, we're in the cosmos, but then we're on the Kree planet where everything's just smoke and gray. And who cares? So I'm so happy that we kept going back to the cosmic world, but we did it with the cosmic world that I like to see, the stuff that looks like a Jack Kirby drawing popped off the page. So I was so happy to be here. I thought this Prince was going to have more screen time, because over the years that this movie was coming out, they really built him up as a character. They're like, oh, this actor got cast, and like it's going to be cool. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought this prince was going to be along for the ride, but it's okay. We didn't really need him at the end of the day. But it did give us what might be my favorite funny line in the movie, where he's dancing with Carol and she's like, "We are all in danger."
Yeah, and well, and I love too, like they really play with the audience in the sense of like she sings the dialogue, like she sings the dialogue like we're all in danger, friends need help, and like all this stuff. And then at one point she's like, okay, we need to stop singing, and then I think it was Monica. She's like, I thought you have to sing to him. And then she looks at him. She's like, "Oh, he's bilingual."
Yeah. What a great, easy way to fix that situation so it doesn't become grating, and it's the writing in this movie is so sharp.
It's still that Disney theme that even Captain America had, because they do kind of Disney princessify Captain Marvel, because they give her like an actual princess dress, I would say, and it's actually. I would say it's actually a really nice design, especially paying respects to the comic book colors of the character.
Yeah, and why the hell is that not like a doll that's already on shelves, right?
I'm sure it will be.
It better be.
I'm sure actually, I think if it connects with the right audience, it's gonna be bigger than it is right now. I think the right audience members haven't quite found it yet. I definitely think I don't think it's gonna be the ones in the front of the theater. I think it might win over the ones in the back of the theater. So
now that I think about it, I haven't even seen any merchandise for the Marvels on any shelves yet, which is strange. Remember the 90s? Like there'd be Godzilla toys out for like a month before the movie came out.
Actually, I remember Civil War, because Civil War was ruined for me because the Funko line came out before the movie, and they announced Giant Man. That's how I knew Giant Man was in Civil War.
That's too bad. They shouldn't do that. They gotta pace themselves. Is this the first time Brie Larson has sung in a movie since Scott Pilgrim?
Oh, since Scott Pilgrim, yes, absolutely.
Since Scott Pilgrim, wow. Yeah, so another Canadian piece of art, right? We've come full circle. I love it. There's Canadian references all over.
Canadian?
What's that?
Is Brie Larson Canadian?
No, I'm saying Scott Pilgrim, because that's set in Toronto. No, she's from America. I don't know where in America. But yeah, that's this musical planet, which I love, and I love all the costumes and everything there is just wonderful, and they have that.
Speaking of costumes, Captain Marvel's Act 1 costume was really good. They fixed it really well, and it looks amazing. I'm not a fan of her second outfit after she leaves the musical planet, but
it's a bit muted, isn't it? It's a bit too, especially because she's standing next to the other two, and their costumes pop.
Yeah, their costumes really pop out. I'm surprised actually too, because it's bigger, like in terms of the symbol and yeah. I honestly think they could have kept the colors and really given her a big splash of gold on the emblem on her chest there.
Yeah.
And given her and it would have been the perfect opportunity, giving her the sash that she normally wears on her hips, but they didn't do that. So but anyway, so the second act battle on the musical planet is really fun. It's really good.
Kamala gets a sash in that fight.
Yes, Miss Marvel does, but I'm saying Captain Marvel wears the sash on her.
Yeah. So they compensated. They give the sash to someone else. But that sash, man, that can do some damage.
Yeah, I gotta say, actually, the fight choreography in this is pretty top notch. As someone who enjoys action sequences, I will tell you that Miss Marvel, first of all, kicks a lot of ass in this one. She does a good job. She has kind of this like breakdancing fighting style that's really fun to watch. And even Captain Marvel lays down quite a beating, as well as Spectrum. So it's really beautiful fighting.
Yeah, it's fast and it's brutal.
Yeah, and it's got some good superhero moments too. A lot of projectile shooting, but yeah, it's really good.
Which a lot of people hate. They hate that it's just the people who hate superhero movies are like, it's just people shooting stuff out of their hands. But it's like, hey, that's what they are. That's what superheroes do. They make it look good on screen. So what's the problem?
Exactly. What's the problem? But so we move into Act 2 leading to Act 3. Now this is where it gets weird.
Really, Ryan? This is where the movie got
Yeah,
weird?
if you thought the singing didn't kick off the weirdness, it gets weirder than that. First of all, Nick Fury in this one is not. I think he's kind of lost his edge, but it's not really a bad thing. I think he's just really comfortable within his character to kind of have a little bit of fun, and it translates. It's there. He has some really funny moments, but he has badass moments too. Um, so at this point, he's on Saber, and Saber has this weird egg coming around in the ship, and those eggs seem to multiply. So we kind of becomes an interesting thing. So. And then on top of that, Captain Marvel's just, she just revealed, as I mentioned before, her backstory about why she hasn't come back. And we get a little backstory too about her mom knowing that she had cancer, and another reason why she couldn't come back and everything. So it's a bit tragic, a bit sad, but we get there. But this is my point in the movie, is that the beats there. So for the villain, like, we already know what the villain's up to, and the villain's already up until stage 4. So now she realizes, hey, I need to go to Earth to get the sun. If I get the sun, that will reignite our sun. Hal is fixed. Planet Earth dies. Everyone, and you get I think that's what it becomes, is that the villain has an interesting angle, but the villain's motivation to gather the resources and destroy the planets, it's all things that Captain Marvel cares about. So I think that's why the villain becomes forgettable, because it becomes a simple revenge story, as opposed to, the Annihilator, this whole Annihilator angle, and like this one rising above to solve Hala's problem. She's not doing it just to solve Hala's problem. She's doing it to get revenge as well as solving Hala's problems. And sometimes revenge is just too simple for me, but that could be it. I don't know. There is some feeling of unsatisfaction there, but yeah.
I don't know. I dig it. I think, I get that revenge is played out, but the manner in which she's seeking that revenge is definitely something I've never seen before. And even though, as we said at the top, this is a small movie in the grand scheme of things, at the end of the day, they saved the galaxy, because if that sun is gone, that's it. So, or not the galaxy, the solar system. I haven't, I'm not a science person, I'm sorry, but they saved the solar system. They saved the Milky Way. No, the Milky Way is the galaxy. Again, not a science person.
They do the classic kind of Marvel science, which is enough to explain things, but it's not, it's very superficial, but it's still enough just to give you,
but the stakes are high, is what I'm struggling to say. The stakes are high. Even at the end, Kamala's mom tells her, like, you just saved the friggin' world. So as small as it seems to us in the grand Marvel scheme, it was a big deal. Like, this is a story that is a big deal.
Yeah. And again, the pieces are important. The pieces of the story are very important. Mm-hmm. So she's stealing the sun, and the eggs. This is another spoiler moment, so I'm going to give you a moment. Spoiler warning.
I think at this point, it's all going to be spoilers, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning. But the eggs turn out to be an army of flurkins, little baby cats with the classic song from the movie Cats.
Is that what that song is from?
No.
Okay, I've never seen Cats, either the movie or the stage show.
Don't watch the new movie. Don't ever go down that rabbit hole. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I don't think I have the fortitude for that. But I gotta give props to this scene, because again, I think this movie's so creative. I love that about it. It would have been so easy and so simple when those eggs hatched for the writers to say, like, okay, it's a big battle and you have a whole army of Flurgan fighting a bunch of Kree. But that's been done, and that's the easy answer. So instead, they give us this cool thing where it's like, hey, those things the insides of a Flurgan is basically like a little pocket universe, and you won't die if you get caught up in one, which they established off the top, because the goose eats a couple of those Kree guys. So it's like, let's use these as a way to solve this problem of getting all these people off this Saber platform. And mad writing respect for whoever put those pieces together. I adored using the cats for that purpose. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10, buddy. Absolutely. It's so clever. So the Saber ship is going down because of the rip in the space, rip in space through the wormhole because of the bracelet. And so the ship gets knocked out of alignment or something. And it causes them to lose half of their escape pods. So they don't have enough escape pods to get everybody off the ship, but then all these Flurkins show up, and it's a hilarious scene, just breaks out, and it's so fun. Also, I have to admit, there's a fun superhero training montage that takes place that the Marvels have to learn how to switch their powers.
Yeah.
Which is really fun to see as well. This happens a little earlier on, so we're kind of jumping back and forth here. But anyway, so the cats and everything, it's really funny. It's hilarious. But then the Marvels now are ready to do the final showdown. Like, that's how fast this movie is. Is like Big Battle 1, characters introduce each other. Big Battle 2, they understand what the problem is. Big Battle 3, they're gonna now, go fix that problem. So they get over there and they duke it out with this accuser. And yeah, I mean, it's just, again, a great fight scene, super fun to watch. And it's interesting too. So she gets both bracelets, and you think they're going to stop her, but she gets one rip in there. Now, this is where a lot of debate happened amongst our group that saw it with us. But yes, so she gets thrown into space. She does her thing that she always does, where she slams the bracelets together.
A Wonder Woman move.
Yeah, kind of a Wonder Woman move there. But this time she has both of them, and the explosion, essentially the energy surging through her is too much, and she explodes herself. And not only that, she punches a hole in the universe. Now, the other thing is, leading up to this event, Captain Marvel essentially knocks something on her, and it ends up stabbing her to a point where she's near death. And Monica finds a diplomatic solution, saying, Captain Marvel, like, you're powerful enough to reignite the sun yourself. You should do it. Captain Marvel's like, I'm not sure if I can. And so this sparked some debate amongst our group, which is interesting, that, they feel like a character who's powerful enough to ignite the sun seemed to have trouble beating someone with just a hammer. But this is where I'm convinced that hammer is imbued with the Power Stone. It may not have the Power Stone, but it's definitely based on its abilities, it seems like it's imbued with the Power Stone a little bit.
I think so. And also, Darben had the other bangle.
Yes.
Which is giving her a lot of power. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Carol needed to use one of those bangles to do her something at the end, to do her Lunette the Clown 10-second tidy.
No, because Miss Marvel had both of them.
She put both of them on, but then when you see her, when they land in Battery Park and she's reunited with her mom, it looks like she's only wearing one.
I'm pretty sure she had both.
She had both of them?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm remembering.
Well, I'll tell you my theory though. So anyway, so the villain ends up like, okay, yeah, if you fix the sun, that's fine, right? But the second Captain Marvel lifts the giant thing off of her, she ends up taking out Miss Marvel and threatening her, gives her the bracelet, flies out into space, smashes it, blows a hole through space-time, which ends up creating a portal into another alternative universe. So in order to fix it, Captain Marvel takes back the bangles, gives them both to Miss Marvel. And I think the reason why Miss Marvel could, and this is, again, when you guys get to the viewers, when you get to the point where you see the scene, I welcome any and all opinions on this. But I think it's because she's a mutant that allows her to absorb the energy of the bangles a bit differently. Because like she even says it, that the bangles if you seek the bangles, they seek you or something like that. But anyway, her powers allow her to survive whatever happens. So Captain Rambo is like, hey, I think I can close it, but I need to be on the other side. And then Captain Marvel's like, oh, that's fine. You guys just power switch it out. She's like, but we can't. So it seems like a one-way ticket. Now, here's where I'm going to insert one last spoiler warning. But on top of that, I'm going to say that I didn't feel as bad as I should have for two reasons.
You didn't feel as bad as you should have that Monica was going to be gone?
Going to be trapped in a different universe.
Okay.
Because, one, they do a good job of making you feel bad, or try to feel bad. But, one, she's not dead. She's just trapped in a different world. Two, you have America Chavez, which we figured out in our last podcast. So eventually, once they realized that she could do that, all she needs to do is eventually be like, okay, where was her jump point? And maybe like be able to feel the energy of that portal and then open one herself and then jump to the other side.
America Chavez is going to solve a lot of problems for everybody.
She is, honestly. Yeah. Or even still, you could use Doctor Strange to do the eye thing and then like, find her in a different world, right? Like that kind of thing, right? But my point is like there is a way to find her. And that made, in my mind, I guess I just kind of jumped to that solution so quickly that I was like, Yeah, I feel terrible for them feeling that way, but in the end, it's not the end of the world.
You jumped ahead in your Marvel knowledge. That's okay. And again, a lot of the stuff in this movie happens so fast, you don't have a lot of time to sit and feel the weight of those moments.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel the weight of Carol saying, oh, now we can't swap anymore. That's bad for me. I didn't feel the weight of that till now that we're sitting talking about it, because everything's going by so quickly. But when we get this opening in reality and we are told by Monica that it is a different reality, it's not, because the whole movie we've been seeing jump points, which are just jump points, but this is different. This is a tear to another universe. This is multiverse time. Yeah. So this is the kind of juicy multiverse stuff that we love. I thought, Ryan, this did not happen, but I thought you were going to get your wish. I thought we were going to see Mr. Captain Marvel from this universe pop up once everything's closed and Monica's like, okay, where the hell am I? I thought she was going to turn around and you'd see like Agent Coulson there or whatever and be like, hey, how's it going? I'm Captain Marvel. And she's like, what? Captain Marvel? And, but that didn't end up happening. But I was thinking of you, buddy. I was sitting there. I'm like, is this going to happen right now? Is he going to get his wish? What would your reaction have been if that happened?
Actually, I would have been delightfully surprised. I would have been like, all right, like, yeah, this is good. Like, this is, again, I got some big comic book nods there that I would have really appreciated. I got the Supreme Intelligence, like class, like when you see that shot, you will really appreciate what I appreciate. Like it looked so comic booky. I was blown away. Yeah, no, I would have been like just like, yeah, like I would have been happy. I would have been a happy camper. Not as happy as what happened. We'll get there. But yeah, I just that never crossed my mind though.
Interesting. Yeah, I just thought because as soon as she was in there, I'm like, she's stuck in another universe. She's probably going to go try to find Carol in that universe. But then I'm like, what if it's not Carol in that universe? And then that's where my mind was going. But I am happier with what we got to.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
I guess we should talk about it then as well.
I guess we should.
Actually, no, we can't yet because there's a part before that. So, anyways, we don't because that doesn't happen till mid credits. So
that's right.
So let's leave it at that. So I'm just going to tell you guys right now, the mid credit sequence is really amazing.
That's fine.
You could say it's uncanny. So let's leave it at that for now, though. But anyway, so
how dare you?
Sorry?
How dare you?
Sorry. I was also going to say astonishing as well, but it's just I'll leave it at that. so they come back, and there's this nice kind of, it's kind of like the classic wrapping up the present kind of thing. Like, hey,
Yeah.
now Captain Marvel hangs out with Kamala's family. Kamala gets to, live her life a little bit with this family and stuff, which is really cool. Nice way to tie that up. But then we get the ending, and the ending feels like an end credit sequence.
It really does.
Because you could have literally ended with them on the plane being like, "Hey, I miss her too," and it's like, "Yeah, look up in the stars," and, a little sparkle in space, something like that. But the first end credit sequence is a nod to a classic, which is and again, spoiler warnings, final time. Like I said, the movie, I feel like we didn't really, and as you've seen from this big experience, is that there isn't really any big spoilers here. Like it's just a fun ride.
Yeah, not in the main story. No, it's a fun ride that's just does what it does.
It does what it does. It just adds it gives you more perspective to story arcs from past content. That's pretty much what it does. It expands on it. But the ending, first big spoiler, is we get a classic kind of Nick Fury recruitment scene. Although it's not Nick Fury, it's Kamala, and she has the tablet that was like all of Saber's security notes on different people, and she goes to recruit none other than Kate freaking Bishop. Oh my god, it was like, that was such a good setup. Like, oh man, it was so awesome. She looks great, by the way. She looks like she's ready to go for a Marvel movie.
Oh yeah, I was literally thinking of Kate Bishop not too long ago. I think during one of our Loki talks, because I was like, Kate Bishop, another just a cool character that we haven't seen again. And yeah, of course, I have a big old crush on Haley Steinfeld, so of course I'm like, yes, more Kate Bishop. But this was such a great surprise, especially because it was not after the credits in any way. It was part of the main meat of the movie, so they threw that at us as a really cool curveball. I like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we see Manhattan. We see a little silhouette of nighttime Manhattan, and I'm like, okay, cool. We're in New York. Cool, whatever. Then we see a silhouette of somebody holding something that looks like a bow, but it goes by pretty fast, just like everything else in this movie. So you're like, okay, who? Okay, whatever. And then you see a dog get thrown some food, and I'm like, that looks kind of like Lucky, but okay. And then we see Kate, and the cherry on the sundae is, like you mentioned, Kamala doing her best Nick Fury impression and sitting in the shadows.
Yeah.
And it's just, if that little snippet of them together is indicative of how much fun a Young Avengers movie is going to be, then I'm already waiting at the theater.
Absolutely. I mean, sign me up. It was such a fun scene. And she also mentions, did you know that Ant-Man had a daughter?
Oh,
so
yeah.
clearly they're going to go recruit her next by the looks of it. But yeah, it was a great nod to the Young Avengers, and I am all for it, man. And I really am, because I have to say, Miss Marvel in this movie really cleans house. Like she's a lot of fun to watch.
She would be great as the leader of Young Avengers if they want to go that route. Is America Chavez a Young Avenger, or is she technically an Avenger?
She's technically an Avenger because she's actually a little bit older. But we have seen a lot, and I mean a lot of the players of the Young Avengers already. So we've seen the young Loki. He's one. We've seen Scar, which is Hulk's son.
That's right. I forgot about him.
Yeah, we've seen Wanda's kids, which is I can't remember their names, but Wiccan and
Speed and Patriot.
And the Patriot. So we've seen the entire roster of the Young Avengers at this point already.
Wow, that's exciting. And all of them are coming in Marvel United Season 3. Except Miss Marvel, because Miss Marvel was already in Season 1, but all the other ones, Kate, Wiccan, Speed, except Sakaar, he's not there. But instead we have Hulkling, who I think is a different.
Yeah, that's the original comic book version is
right.
Hulkling, but Scar is supposed to be the MCU version.
Right. Yeah, but they're all They're all coming in the board game, as is Spectrum, because she hasn't been in it yet, but she's about to be.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's so it was a great scene, a great setup. I mean, these are it scenes like this that I live for in the MCU. It's and what I liked about this one is I am a little tired of these solo hero movies. Like, Shang-Chi was a really good exception, like to the rule. But at this point, the more the merrier in these movies. You got to stop. Marvel's got to stop holding back and really kind of get characters together. And that's what I did love about this movie, was the fact that we had three heroes.
Yes.
And really play as a group. We even got, and I forgot to mention this, but we even got a Valkyrie appearance as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tessa Thompson only had to work for about 20 minutes, but she was there. She was there doing her best. Like, that might be the quickest cameo we have ever gotten in these movies.
Yeah.
Like, she's literally like, boom, I'm here. Boom, I'm gone. And I'm like, wow, you really just got Tessa for that short amount of time. I thought she was going to come back and help or something.
But this is where you have to meet the movie halfway, is that because Captain Marvel had a good relationship with Thor in Infinity War, as well as, mostly Infinity War. Like, they seem to get along. But in Endgame, I think Captain Marvel only had a couple scenes with Valkyrie, but they don't look like they're talking to each other. They're just there together in the shot.
Yeah.
But that's it. So you kind of have to make the assumption that she spent time with these characters post Endgame. So.
Yeah, again, it's great Lando Calrissian world building, right? She's been up to so much stuff over the years. I wish they hadn't shown Valkyrie in the trailers, because they literally showed everything that she does in the whole movie.
It was shown in the final trailer. It wasn't shown in the it was shown in the final trailer, which I'm pretty sure came out like less than 3 days ago or something like that.
Yeah, but I wish they hadn't shown us that. Like, don't keep that as a surprise. It's literally you blink and you miss it.
Yeah, it's a blink and you miss it, but at the same time, it's no different than other trailers we've seen where it's no different than Wong and Shang-Chi. Like, it's literally one scene. It doesn't really serve any purpose whatsoever, and that's it.
Yeah, the only purpose it serves is just the fun of the cameo. So I don't know.
It's the only purpose it serves is it's nice to see other characters mixing into other stories. That's where it really shines. Like, give us more of that. Yeah, like, I still, like, even though I harp on Wong and Shang-Chi, I still wanted that. Like, I still want that to happen. But my point is, it doesn't serve anything. It doesn't do anything. But that's okay. Like, just, have Kamala walking through the streets and give Luke Cage a high five. Doesn't have to serve a story. I just like to see the characters running around together, because it's the possibility of where these stories can go that can still be fun.
Yeah, 1,000%. I love all that. I just want to be surprised by it in the theater instead of in a trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want the trailers to show us that. And the whole fact of it all, how this was the type of movie that it was, I think that the Marvels belongs on a high pedestal. I'm putting it up next to Civil War and Spider-Man No Way Home for being a non-Avengers movie that was not afraid to be a big team-up movie. Because those are rarer than we think right now. Even though the MCU is all about that integration, they're still rarer than we think, right? Doctor Strange 2 didn't have, Hawkeye hanging around with him the whole time. Like, it's still a Doctor Strange movie. So the team-up movies, when they come, they are everything we love about these, and they work. So the Marvels belongs on that top shelf with those.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I definitely, and again, like, this movie's not bad. It's good. It's a good movie. I actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what? They were missing this, but oh wait, there was this scene. I remember that. It's like you said, all the good pieces are there. It's just the order could have been rearranged a little better, but it still doesn't discredit it as being a bad movie.
Not at all. No, I wouldn't call it bad at all. And I mean, I know you, for one, are going to spend the rest of your life thinking about that mid-credit scene, mister. Aren't ya?
So yeah, so okay, so the movie ends with that wonderful Kate Bishop scene, which was everything I wanted and more. And again, even if they didn't have this next scene, I would have still left in a very good mood based on that scene alone, because it's nice to finally get these newer characters to start, meeting and
Yes.
talking, right?
Yes, please.
That's huge. It's very important. Like, let's go. So the next thing is that I will say, first of all, that the credit sequence is beautiful. The art is just absolutely stunning. By the way.
Mm-hmm. All the more reason why those sequences should be at the top of the movie, but I digress.
I digress. The next one, though, so first of all, after Spectrum closes the portal, it's a one-way ticket for her, but she's also in an alternate reality. And so then it begs the question, where is she? Because that's the first question you're going to ask yourself is, where did she go?
Yeah.
So she wakes up and sees her mom, and she starts freaking out. She's like, oh my God. Like, even you as the viewers are like, how is she alive? Because as far as we knew, like, she's done. She's gone. And then on top of that, to go one note further, is that, like, if she's still alive, what does that mean? Like, was it a secret thing? Like, I don't know. And then I realized she's in a hospital. So my brain starts to go, oh my God, who got her from space? Right? So it made me go, okay, so that means probably the Fantastic Four picked her up because they're space travelers, right? They probably saw an anomaly in space and wanted to see what it does. And that started getting me super stoked because I'm like, oh my God, are we going to finally see Mr. Fantastic? Oh no, they totally subverted all the fans' expectations for this. And they dropped an X-Men reference, and they brought in Beast. That's right. Kelsey Grammer's Beast has returned, and he's a little more CG this time around, but it's the same Beast voice you know and love. That feeling from the cartoon where he's got just that gritty but yet such cultured and educated voice, and honestly, I couldn't even tell you what he said. I don't freaking care. It's just like, I remember he did say things. I remember it was more
he
about...
spoiled the whole plot of the Kang Dynasty.
No, they didn't. But no, they explained that, like, she came through a portal and that they have to assume that it's an alternate reality, blah, blah, blah. And that it leads to curiosity. But Beast does his classic Beast thing where he says, like, something super educated. But
Yes.
But anyways, I was literally, you could not strap me to my chair. Like, I was literally just leaning on the edge of the chair, just absorbing it. But we did it. We got our first X-Men character in the MCU, full on X-Men from the group character.
And you know what's funny? First of all, like, he is to this day one of the most perfectly cast superhero roles in cinema ever, like, ever. But the funny thing is, who does he yes, you're right, he's the first X-Man we get, and it happens to be Beast, who happens to be my favorite X-Man, so yay. And second of all, how funny is it that who does he interact with from our universe here, but Monica, who's from WandaVision, which is a show that had you and I thinking for a long time was going to show Beast. Remember?
That's right. That is absolutely right. Because she said she had a really smart friend.
Yeah. And we were riding that Beast train for a long time. So the odds, like, we kind of got our wish just a few years later.
That Disney Plus investment, baby. That's
I am glad, though, Ryan. I'm super glad that it worked out the way it did for you, because unfortunately, this got spoiled for me before I saw the movie. Yeah, I accidentally stumbled on something on YouTube. In one of my suggested videos, somebody said that rumors are saying Beast is going to be in the movie. And I'm like, okay. And then I was on Twitter a couple days ago, and some dude was posting a bunch of pictures of Beast from X-Men 3. without a lot of context. So I'm like, oh no, did this just get spoiled for me? And so I didn't get to whoop with glee, but still I was so happy to see him. I was so happy it was still Kelsey Grammer. And this, for the first time in phases 4 and 5, it feels like our first direct arrow pointing at Secret Wars, because he sets it up beautifully. You're right. He said something that was so Hank McCoy, like from the way he talked in the cartoon, like curiosity is the virtue of all. Like he said something that's just so beast, and I wish I could remember what it was. But after that, he goes, Charles wants an update, and he wants to know what's going on. So you can just tell that all that world is going to be like, hey, let's go see what's going on with this other world, and those two worlds are gonna do the mumbo.
So the big question is, what does this mean? And of course, the obvious answer is Secret Wars. We know it's coming. It's not really a big surprise. But what does it mean from a movie perspective, and also for an MCU perspective? What does that mean? And what I think it means personally is you have the MCU world that was built from Avengers till now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now this new world has Beast, and obviously we can assume the X-Men, and I think that world is also going to have the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
And personally, the way I kind of see it is one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to go into the MCU world, or the other way around, which is more likely to me, is that they're going to, like, the MCU world has kind of reached its legs, right? It's kind of run its pace. We've introduced the characters we need to introduce, but now we need to build up this second world. And at this point, they have all the opportunity they need, whether or not they want to continue and maybe have just two coexisting worlds, or you can now rebuild and make better choices in this new world, and then eventually phase out the MCU world and then start completely fresh another way. But I don't know. It sounds to me like at this point, like you could go just the middle route. But what kind of makes me curious is, at the same time, there is a third option, which is like, you can just test. You could test whatever you want. If the character works in one alternate reality, just bring them over.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Doctor Strange is a perfect example of that. People love Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. In the other world, it was Benedict Cumberbatch, and he died, but it's still the same guy, right? Same with the fan casting for Black Bolt. He didn't work out in technically this. I guess the non-MCU MCU Inhumans,
Yeah.
but they still brought him back, and so it's a smart move. In my opinion, it's going to work one of two ways. Is my one way, where it's like, if one doesn't work, you can exhaust the MCU and bring over which characters you need for this new world, and then continue on in this new alternate world, or you use this alternate world to test out characters that may or may not work, and then you bring them over to the MCU, and then you carry them through. But one of two ways are going to happen, because in Secret Wars, the two alternate worlds, for a period of time, recognize they exist, and then Galactus comes, and then they sacrifice one of the planets, and there's an explosion that ends up happening, and it leads them into the world of the Secret Wars. But it's because Doctor Doom did something in order for that to happen. But he ends up controlling that world, and so on and so forth. So this is a big drop. This is huge. So this is the exact thing that the MCU needs to get back on its feet and get some momentum, in terms of being in a saga with a villain that's driving and perpetuating to this Avengers Secret Wars. So now, in my opinion, this is no different than as I said so eloquently in the theater, is that this is as good as when Thor: Dark World had the collector's end credit sequence where he says 1 down, 5 to go. This is that very same end credit sequence you need to kick off this saga and say, this is the multiverse saga, which is going to lead you to Secret Wars, and this is that one that's going to perpetuate that story.
Yeah, it spells it out more clearly than it ever has before. And I think a big part of that, even though it's just a little visual treat, is how the doors of that lab are the exact doors from the X-Men movies, like those chrome X's. And apparently we didn't notice, but we saw in the credits they sampled music from X-Men 2 and from Days of Future Past.
That's right.
Yeah, so I have to. It's been so long since I've seen those movies. I have to remember what that music is, but it apparently played there. So I think that is them pointing to that being like, hey, this is that world. And now those worlds are going to meet. And the beauty of all that, the multiverse of it all, of the testing the characters, is that it's fan service that both simultaneously serves the story and is served by the story. And that is so rare that it might as well be an Infinity Stone unto itself. So that's a weapon in Feige's belt. Use it, man. Use it.
Just you can't, at this point, you can't do any wrong, and we're in for quite a ride. So because like now we finally have an end credit sequence that plays up to the story of like you said, it now plays up the story to where this is going, and finally moving that and it serves this wonderful purpose. So now we have Echo. What If and Echo, which technically What If is probably the What If season 2 could have some big things that could perpetuate the MCU forward. But the next big one is Deadpool after Echo in January. That's we don't have a big Marvel movie for at least 6 months.
Yeah, because Deadpool is definitely not making that May release date. They say it's still happening in the summer. If it is, it's going to be August 31st. So
it's May 3rd currently slated.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not with all the delays we've had. So next year is going to be a bit of a dry spell. We're going to get Echo out the top, and we're going to eventually get Deadpool, and then that's it, because Captain America just got delayed till February 2025. So we're in for a dry spell, but the good thing of that is it's going to make us miss it more, and it's going to make its return feel very powerful, especially because now we live in this world where it's cool to be jaded about it, and it's cool to hate on it and be like, Marvel's dying now, guys. So that little dry spell is going to help kind of wash some of that out of the well and just get people excited and happy again. Well, this movie already did that for me, but there's a lot of other people who are way too jaded still. So I think that's what we're going to look at in the near future.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we got some time, but we also have Thunderbolts too. But I don't know how far Thunderbolts have been delayed as well.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be after Captain America too. So who knows? That's all. And we'll be in our 40s by the time we see Secret War, but that's okay. Do you want to rate the Marvels now?
Guess we'll have to.
To give you some context, we both gave the first Captain Marvel movie 4 Infinity Stones.
I'll give it 5.
5 stones. All right, let me find it.
Because again, I'm still not sure. I'm not fully convinced of how much I like it. I do like it, but I'm not convinced of how much I like it.
That's fair. I can understand that. A few more watches will help for sure. Mm-hmm. I think maybe I'm riding a high, but I'm really impressed with what was going on there. I'm going to give it 5.5. It impressed me a lot. The writing was clever. So much of it was creative. It did a lot with very little, which is hard to do. It still does feel like a rushed movie. I would love if Peter Jackson came along and made a nice big long cut of this, but I'm still very happy with what we got. And I think
in the end, I think what sums it up is I had a good time. I had a really good time.
I had a really good time, and it gives us, or at least it gives me, and I know you love this and Feige loved this, but it gives us what we love about Marvel, which is all the interconnectivity of it all. So much so that I would say, even though I don't think this is the best Marvel movie of this year, I think it's the best MCU movie of this year.
I agree with that. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let people marinate with that for a minute because I agree with that. I agree with that. How I would phrase it, I think this is one of the best of the multiverse saga.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it stands tall with the Infinity Saga, some of the Infinity Saga movies, but in terms of the multiverse saga, my list is starting to form a little bit, and I will say that first of all, I'd say Shang-Chi ranks pretty. I think Shang-Chi is number one for me. I really need to
Wow.
I need to look at the list overall again just to be sure. But for right now, Shang-Chi's like number one for me, but Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is definitely number two, and I would say this is pretty close to being number three. The movies though.
Wow. So all of those trumped Spider-Man for you, huh?
Oh, I see that. I knew I was forgetting one. Spider-Man's number one.
Okay.
So Spider-Man number one, Shang-Chi number two. I knew I was forgetting one because I was trying to remember where the difference is. But yeah,
Mhm.
Spider-Man number one, Shang-Chi number two, Doctor Strange, Multiverse number three, and the Marvels number four.
Cool. I like that. I can get behind that. Yeah. This was a pleasant surprise, a really fun movie. We'll wrap up with a never tell me the odds, Ryan.
Okay.
Or, the odds of what are the odds that the Bengals and Shang-Chi's 10 Rings are part of the same set of armor?
You know what? I thought about that myself. That thought did cross my mind because I'm like, the bangles are like the wrist plates, but the rings could be a part of like the sleeves. Yeah. So I'm like, but to who would need it?
Yeah, to what end? It's crazy, but I mean, did they come from the same spot? We still don't know where either of them came from.
The only thing, and it's so out of left field. And to be fair though, I haven't seen Loki yet. So I haven't seen the last episode of Loki
Same.
that came out today. So I don't know what happened there. But one theory that could work is what if these are pieces to assemble Kang?
Ooh. Interesting. Okay.
The only reason why I think that is because the 10 rings, the 10 rings are, and I'm talking like a kind of like a really cool, because like again, like my theory is that I've noticed that so far there hasn't been a definitive Kang the Conqueror. From the Ant-Man movie, Kang says when Janet says, "Who's Kang?" He responds with who I'm supposed to be. He doesn't say who he is. It says who he's supposed to be. Or no, who I need to be. Sorry, who I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't say that's who he is. It's just who he needs to be. And then I know at the end credits though that Immortus says that the Conqueror is dead. But again, that doesn't mean that Kang the Conqueror is dead. It's just, it's a title, right?
Yeah.
And then Victor Timely is following instructions that seem like they're building, like he's trying to pursue becoming somebody. So, and Miss Minutes is trying to set him up in a way to become somebody. So what if these pieces, because and the only reason why I'm basing it is that in the 10 Rings, they said that this technology is very old. So I don't know. My guess is what if, based on, first of all, it's a lot of purple powers. So Kang's a purple power using guy. Two, ancient technology that's been on Earth. I mean, Immortus has been around a long time, so on Earth, as well as Victor Timely. So that's another clue. And the final clue I have here is that they mentioned that in the 10 Rings there's a beacon coming out of it.
Yes.
So maybe Kang is still out there somewhere, and that finding these pieces will eventually open a portal to bring him back.
So you think the odds of them being connected in some way are high?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because the Bengals seem very old as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll call them Bengals. And they're extremely powerful, which the greatest power thus far in the multiverse that changed all the rules was the TVA's power.
And what is the hit song by the band The Bangles? Walk Like an Egyptian, Rama Tut. Ayo. I think the odds of them being connected are also very high. I'm going to say there's 64% chance that they're part of the same thing. I'm going to go crazy, though, and I'm going to say they're not to do with Kang. I'm going to say that however many pieces there are to this thing, when you put them together, I'm going to guess you make the ultimate nullifier, and that they have to do with Galactus.
When I saw the 10 Rings end credits happen, that was always my first thought. I'm like, it's a beacon calling Galactus, but I don't know. There's not enough to support it.
Yeah, I don't have a leg to stand on. I'm just speaking out of my butt because I want to see Galactus. But these are important things to be sure that we're going to see in the future. And hopefully, if Marvel makes good on all its promises, we're also going to see the Young Avengers and the X-Men, and we'll see the Musical Planet again if I get my wish, because I want to go back there. Ryan, where can the people find you when you're not watching the movies?
You can find me on Instagram right now. I again, every time we have this conversation, I'm like getting closer and closer, just shutting down my ex account at this point. It's just
your what account?
The Twitter account.
There we go.
But you can find me on Instagram, but you can at Ryan J. Whitehead. You can also find me on YouTube at Expert Zone. That's my work site that I do a lot of cool Microsoft videos for. And you can find me here with Digital Charcuterie or potentially the Rebels Come podcast, one or the other, but it's there.
Yeah, you got it. You can find me in most of all those places as well at Andrew Fantasia on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me on Amazon, or namely, you can find my books on Amazon. They're fantasy books. Did you know that, Ryan? Did you know there's wizards in my books that I wrote?
I do know that. Also, I noticed you have the Infinity colors on your Wizards title there.
I have the rainbow, because every wizard is a different color, and the boss is always all the colors of the rainbow. And there are spoilers. There's a group of witches, and they have the exact same thing going on. But this is We Were Wizards, and it's the first book in my fantasy novel series. There are more. There's the other one. Whoa! And you can get those on Amazon right now in whatever format you choose, except audiobook, because I don't have that yet, but maybe one day. Any last words on the Marvels before we sign off?
It's a fun ride, and I think if you want to kind of get back to a refreshing pace of the MCU, it's worth a watch. And I think it merits a watch. So you need to go out and see it. It's a fun ride. And man, those end credit sequences are, even me explaining it, you'll still get the joy. It still doesn't quite capture what I saw there. But like I said, like for me, it was a lot like seeing Thor, Dark World, in the sense that once I hit that end credit sequence, I was just like, I'm so glad you got to be there for that. Man, we finally had a really cool, like a really fun surprise end credit sequence that was like huge. So
it was, and even though I was spoiled ahead of time, it still made my heart grow to see my boy Hank McCoy there again. And the beauty of it is that even though we always love the credit sequences, the beauty of it is the movie is what matters at the end of the day, and they made a really good, solid movie. So
they made a fun movie.
Yeah,
fun movie.
I'm very happy with how the Marvels turned out, and I can't wait for whatever's next, which is Loki. I'm gonna go watch that now once I'm done editing this, and then we have a dry year ahead of us, but that's okay. We'll still have fun stuff to do. In the meantime, though, we will see you all next time on Infinity Rewatch. Thank you so much for listening. Please have a higher, further, faster, more marvelous, ×3 day. A Professor Marvelous day.